Let's talk about building your team. So whatever route you are choosing, for example, at the beginning of this series, we spoke about fix and flip, buy and hold, and wholesaling. Whatever strategy you choose, you're going to need to build your team specifically around that strategy. Let's break down each strategy and give you a good idea of the members that you would need to include on your team. So let's start off with fix and flip. Naturally, if you're going to purchase properties to fix and flip, you're going to need a completely different team as if you were going to purchase properties for the purpose of buy and hold. So if you're purchasing properties to fix and flip, two automatic team members you're going to need is a realtor and a qualified contractor. The qualified contractor is actually the most important piece. You see, fixing and flipping is all about accurate financial projections. Budgeting is a huge part of this strategy. So if you budget $75,000 for renovations, you need to be sure that your contractor will not pass $75,000 for renovations. And this is where having a reliable contractor could be invaluable to your business. Another member that you would need part of your team if you were going to fix and flip properties might be a home stager. You see, these days with AI and technology, home staging is not what it used to be 20 years ago. 20 years ago, when we were operating in real estate and doing fixes and flips and we needed to stage a home, home stagers would literally rent you the furniture to take photos so that you do not take photos of an empty unit. Nowadays, it could easily be manipulated and staged virtually through AI. So all this really does is it avoids the whole hassle of having to stage a property with actual furniture, when you could just take a professional photograph of the space, send it to a home stager who could then fill it up and who could also stage it virtually. When you're reselling your fix and flip, yes, it's one thing to have nice quality renovations, but by having photographs with furniture included really gives buyers a sense of the living space. You see, when you're selling a fix and flip property, your end seller is going to be someone who's going to look to live into the property. And someone who's going to look to live into the property is visual. So it would help them a lot more if they had furniture in the pictures to visualize how them and their family would live in your product. So if you want to become a fix and flipper, I highly suggest adding a realtor, a home stager, and a qualified contractor to your team. Now, if you want to buy properties for buy and hold purposes, this is a long-term strategy where you essentially become a landlord. You need a completely different team. You'll need a realtor, of course, but now you'll also need a property manager. See, a property manager, should you choose to not manage it yourself, is someone that makes sure that your product is operating at an optimal rate throughout the course of your 5 to 10 year hold. A property manager handles all the day-to-days of the property, all the tenant relations, tenant requests, and problems related to managing this property. You will also need a contractor in this case, because if you're going to do renovations throughout the 5 to 10 year span or the lifelong hold of this strategy, then eventually you're going to need to do renovations when you have tenant turnover, so on and so forth. Another team member would be a handyman. You see, having a handyman to service your service call requests, for example, leaking toilets, pipes, lights that are not working anymore, a handyman will be able to do the day-to-day repairs and maintenance that are required. But if you have a good property manager, they generally come fully equipped with their entire team. However, I like to have one of each under my phone contacts. That way I could call them directly and not necessarily rely on a middleman. You will also need to have a legal team. The reality is, when it comes to buy and holds, there's a lot of problems that could happen. For example, tenants could go delinquent and stop paying. You might need to open a file at your local tribunal, send them for a court hearing for non-payment of rent. You'll need to have a whole legal team set up. Bailiffs, lawyers, anybody who could help you throughout the legal process if it goes that way. The unfortunate reality of the buy and hold strategy is sooner or later you will run into a problematic tenant. That problematic tenant might cost you money might stop paying his rent, might damage the unit. You might have to take him to court to reclaim your damages. This is where the legal team comes in. Another team member that I personally like to add to my team for my buy and hold properties is a leasing agent. See, not every property manager offers leasing services. So when these units become vacant and need to get turned over, you might want to have a leasing agent who specializes in just leasing units. Leasing agents usually work for themselves. They usually work commission based, but every time you have a unit that becomes vacant, you could send it to the leasing agent and they take on the full responsibility of leasing the property. Now, be careful with this. You must send it to a proactive and detail-oriented leasing agent. Remember a couple minutes ago when I spoke about running into a problem or a delinquent tenant? Well, this is generally all avoided by having a thorough qualification process in place specifically for leasing. You see, I like to ask preliminary questions whenever a phone call comes in for a property that's being leased. And those preliminary questions will allow me to determine whether or not this candidate is a fit and advance to the next portion of the leasing process, which is the visit. See, whether or not your leasing agent is going to lease the units for you or you're leasing them yourself, you're going to want to maximize the quality of visitors versus the quantity. If you have 10 visit requests, but only 3 of the candidates qualify for your product, why would you do 10 visits? Focus on the 3 that qualify. So if you're looking to buy and hold as a real estate investment strategy, this is generally the team that you would need to include. Now, if you want to do wholesaling, it's a completely different team from fix and flips and from buy and holds. Generally speaking, a wholesaler will work with a digital marketer. This person will be able to program and run the ads that they're running, the digital ads. Wholesalers will also want to work with what we call bird dogs. You see, a bird dog is someone who finds deals for you. For example, someone who goes out and makes contacts and finds a deal will then say, okay, I have this seller that you could put under contract and he'll charge you a portion, a fee. Kind of like a finder's fee. Now, this must be accounted for into your assignment fee. You see, a bird dog generally charges anywhere between $1,000 to $5,000 for a deal. So keep in mind that if you have a bird dog bring you a seller to put under a wholesale contract, and you typically charge a 10% assignment fee, and on the case that we spoke about in the earlier episodes where you put a $200,000 house under contract at a 10% assignment fee, and you have an end buyer willing to buy it off of you for $220,000, your assignment fee must take into account the bird dog's finder fee. So whether that be $1,000 or $5,000, that will be included in your assignment fee and will ultimately come off the top of your portion. So wholesalers usually have digital marketers that they work with. They have bird dogs. Acquisition managers can be one of them. An acquisition manager is a little bit more than a bird dog. It's someone who actually puts in time in doing calls, someone who looks to scout and vet deals for you. So the difference between the 3 strategies ultimately has an impact on the team you're building around it. As you can see from the examples that we just went through, a fix and flip is not the same team as a buy and hold a buy and hold is not the same team as a fix and flip.